In accordance with the Elections Act, the Commission will also submit the report to the National Assembly and the Senate. In the spirit of transparency and commitment to public confidence in the register of voters and electoral processes, the Commission now provides this briefing to inform Kenyans of the summary findings and actions taken to address issues identified from the audit. The key figures we want to share with the country. In 2017, we had 40,883 polling stations, and for 2022, we shall have 46,232 polling stations. This gives a growth rate of 13.08%. The final number of registered voters in 2017, we had 19,611,423 registered voters, and 2022 we have 22,120,458. The data available from Kenya National Bureau of Statistics on eligible voters in 2017, KNBS had 25,212,096 as identified as eligible voters, and in 2022, the data obtained from KNBS was 27,857,598. And we had from the National Registration Bureau of Persons Issued with IDs, 2017, we had 25,323,059, and 2022, 29,566,678, representing 16.76% growth. So those are figures which, if you look at now the enrollment rate in 2017, the registered voters compared to eligible voters, that's registered voters by IEBC compared to eligible voters by KNBS, in 2017 represented 77.78%, and 2022 79.41%. And registered voters by IEBC compared to IDs issued by NRB, 2017 represents 77.44%, and 2022 74.82%. There's also been a noticeable increase among prisoners and diaspora. In prisons, 2017 we had 5,182 registered voters. In 2022, 7,483. And diaspora 2017, 4,223. In 2022, 10,444. So those are the figures which are key. Part of the process of the audit was by KPMG was to engage stakeholders, and this is important because stakeholder engagement is key. And part of the stakeholders engaged by KPMG during the audit are government representatives responsible for maintaining and providing reference data required for the audit. This includes the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, National Registration Bureau, Department of Immigration Services, and Civil Registry Services. Aspirants and political parties were also engaged in conjunction with the Political Parties Liaison Committee, and aspirants running independently or through registered political parties were engaged in a meeting held somewhere in Nakuru. The public and media also engaged. We had an engagement and a representative from KPMG here on the 8th of June this year. And these briefings covered the state of the register, the state of the audit, highlights of the report, and the next steps towards certification of the register. I will now highlight a few. I'll highlight 7 recommendations made by the audit. And these are, number 1, There were findings on the process and system controls, processes and system controls at the IEBC. KPMG audit has identified a number of issues that can enhance accuracy and credibility in the register of voters. The audit has also recommended that IEBC gives priority to implementing a medium-term transformational program to ensure that it has systems, capacity, and structure that will enable its role in anticipation of a fresh registration process before the 2027 general election. In accordance with the recommendation, the Commission will review its registration process with a view to strengthening the same by developing and implementing, among others, the following: automated data input validation controls, or explore possibility of using integrated population registration systems, that's IPRS, database in enrollment processes, having pre-numbered registration forms and digitizing the same, periodic comparison of the register of voters with the relevant government agencies, logging and monitoring of system user activities. There was also a finding on transfer of voters. KPMG analyzed the full register and noted that there were transfer transactions processed between 2017 general election and May 2022. The analysis of those transfers identified several constituencies and counties showing trends of abnormal voter transfers having been processed in the register of voters. A breakdown of all transfers processed in the register to and from the 47 counties, 290 constituencies, diaspora, and prison was shared, and together with the Commission, the audit identified the specific counties which had abnormal trends and voter transfer numbers. The objective of the joint exercise was to ascertain the accuracy and validity of those transfers and to enable quick corrective action. By the time of issuance of the final KPMG report, transactions in areas identified as having unusual transfer records had been reversed. In addition, the Commission undertook a parallel exercise of collecting all the Form Cs across the country and capturing them in a database to quality check the register of voters and take appropriate action. The other finding is on the registered voters biometric review. In the review of the registered voters biometric, the audit assessed the completeness, biometric quality, and uniqueness of the register of voters. The tests carried out by KPMG confirmed that the fingerprint images captured by the Commission were good and that the deduplication system was working as expected. The other finding was on exceptions generated from the register of voters. KPMG carried out tests on the register of voters, including comparison with the National Registration Bureau, the Directorate of Immigration Services, and the Civil Registry Services to ascertain its accuracy, and the results of these tests were provided to the Commission for validation to confirm whether they relate to legitimate voters. The results will be explained to you. I'll invite Mr. Marjan to take you through the results which were identified. Database security and infrastructure controls. That was another finding. As part of the audit, KPMG reviewed controls over the database and infrastructure control and made recommendations on strengthening controls over application, database, and infrastructure to ensure security of the register of voters. The Commission has already commenced implementation of KPMG recommendations with the third parties providing the Commission with IT support. This includes application of least privilege principle by disabling all user access rights and only giving them privileges needed to complete their specific tasks. Another finding was on inclusiveness of the register of voters. KPMG carried out an assessment on the inclusiveness of the register of voters with regard to age, gender, persons living with disabilities, and geographic distribution. Further, KPMG reviewed inclusiveness processes, policies, infrastructure, and mechanisms implemented by the Commission to enhance inclusiveness of the register of voters. The following statistics obtained from this assessment: women represent 49.12% of registered voters, and men represent 50.88% of the total voters, demonstrating that women are still underrepresented in the register of voters. The number of youth 18 to 34 years old registered to vote in 2022 stands at 39.84%, which is a decline of 5.27% against what we had in 2017. Further analysis of youth enrollment statistics show that the number of registered female youth has declined by 7.75% in the period 2017 to 2022, while male youth enrollment has declined by 2.89%. The enrollment of PWDs stands at 18.94% of the eligible voting population. Registration of Kenyans living in diaspora constitutes 0.05% of the register of voters. The Commission has invested all its efforts to address majority of pre-election day issues identified from the audit, and at the same time, we are also carrying out our election operation plan. The Commission is grateful to KPMG for the services provided in the audit of the register of voters. The Commission now invites all stakeholders to continue providing every support in the preparations for the 2022 general election. I would like to invite CEO Mr. Marjan to take you through the figures on the exceptions and also on the action plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
You need my first.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As you may have noticed that in the previous media briefing, the chairman had indicated that there are several exceptions that were generated by KPMG, and these exceptions were generated by comparing the register of voters with relevant agencies, including the National Registration Bureau, the Civil Registry Services, Department of Immigration, and the outcome of that was there were several groups. In particular, there were 5 categories of exceptions that were identified. And the first one is when our register of voter was compared with the National Registration Bureau and Department of Immigration Services, there were 226,143 records that do not match with the NRB and DIS, with the National Registration Bureau and Department of Immigration Services, meaning that there were IDs and passport reference documents that matched with the NRB and DIS, but the names recorded in our database and the other database were not agreeing. The ID numbers were agreeing, but the names were not agreeing. So there were 26,143 as at 2nd June 2022. By the time when we issued the final audit, we had resolved 24%, and that is 107. That translated to balance of 172,929. The reason for not completing the exercises because it requires investigation, and also because the IDs could be as a result of transposition or transcription errors. The registration assistants or clerks, during the time when they were capturing the details of national IDs and also the the passport numbers, there is a possibility that the numbers were captured incorrectly because of transposition and transcription errors. So when you compare with the NRB or the Department of Immigration Services, it was possible that you may have actually compared wrong ID with the right ID at the National Registration Bureau. And therefore, the right thing is to do proper investigations, because it is likely that you are going to balkanize a legitimate voter because of such discrepancies. So we said then the balance of those who are remaining that we were unable to complete is that during election, we are going to use biometric identification of the voters, and therefore it will hedge against the risk of having somebody who is legitimate appearing at the polling station and they are denied to vote. So that is the decision that the Commission took. The second category was for individuals who have registered more than once and with both IDs and passport numbers. Individuals who have registered more than once with ID and passport numbers. Ideally, if I were to classify them, I'll say these are actually crooks. That is what I would say, because how would you register with a national ID and again register with a passport number? But it is also possible that some may have actually forgotten, because majority of them are actually coming all the way from 2012 when the register of voter was actually being created. Out of that, we have actually managed to handle 59% of that. So there were 4,757 records, but we handled 59% of that. And the remaining 1,928 was still actually in the registration, in the register of voters. What you are saying is that after this exercise, we will hand over these records, 4,757, to the relevant agencies for further investigation to understand why people are registering more than once with the different documents, so that proper charges can be preferred against them. Then we have got the third categories where the records within the register of voters had duplicates or blank IDs / passport reference numbers. There are situations whereby the registration clerks enroll people without completing the ID area, or maybe the ID phase. There's a place for actually recording ID, and there's a place for recording passport number. So when they were handling this, there are those that actually had blank ID numbers or blank passport numbers, and those ones were actually 481,711. By the time of issuance of the audit report, the number had reduced to 144,674. We actually dealt 70% of these items were actually closed. But in order to ensure that legitimate voters are not turned away during election, the use of biometric identification during election will mitigate against any risk of a legitimate voter going to vote, and also legitimate voters being prevented from going to vote. This measure will actually take place during the election day. Then the other categories was records with invalid documents, reference numbers as recorded in the register of voters when compared with the National Registration Bureau and Department of Immigration Services. In particular, we had 12,435 invalid passports and 151,834 invalid IDs. When you talk about invalid, we mean that ID should have numbers only. And also, the length of the ID can either be 7 or 8 digits. For those old generation IDs, they are actually 7 digits. For the new ones are actually 8 digits. So we had IDs that were less than 7, and IDs that maybe were also more than 8. So meaning when you compare them with the Registration Bureau, those ID do not match because they actually don't fall within those categories. And also, we had, for invalid passports, I think the issue is about the Department of Immigration Services not maintaining a record of the old generation passports, and therefore they were captured as exception by the KPMG report. So those ones were actually validated and they were found to be correct. So the only ones that had challenges were the ones that were having either fewer than 7 digits and also more than 8 digits. So those ones were actually the ones that were remaining. And 11% of those were actually corrected because it required now the registration officer to call the voters and also to go back and to confirm with the documents that are actually in our custody. So that requires a lot of time. So by the time we were acting on this recommendation, up to the time when we received the report, only 11% had been acted upon. So, but again, also the risk of deciding, for example, to eliminate all of them is to say that there may be legitimate voters who may come during the election to present themselves, and then we tell them that you are not part of this exercise. So to hedge against that, we actually decided that because we are going to use biometric identification during the election, we will actually be able to positively identify those who are legitimate, and the ones that are illegitimate will actually be prevented from participating in the election. The last category was the category of deceased person. On 2nd of June, we had 246,465 deceased voters appearing in the register of voter, and this was as a result of analysis between our register of voter and that of civil register services. By the time of issuance of the audit report on 16th June 2022, all of them had actually been deactivated, and therefore they will not participate, if at all they are there, that they will be able to rise. They will not participate in the election because their records are actually not there. So we actually managed to act on 100% on this category. So this is what the chairman had requested me to present. And okay, the last category is on the, not category per se, the last on implementation matrix, we had 4 categories of recommendations that had been given to us by KPMG, and they are categorized into 2. That is those that should be handled before the election day and those that should be handled after election. In particular, when you are carrying out new registration, what are the things that you should pay attention to? So there are 4 categories. One of the categories is voter registration, transfer, and voter detail update processes. There were 3 recommendations that we are supposed to handle before the election day, and 6 recommendations that we are supposed to handle in the medium term, that is after the election. Meaning that these are the ones that we should pay attention to as we are now designing new ways of actually re-enrolling people, because you are aware that immediately after the election there is going to be boundaries delimitation, and we will actually come up with a new register for the purpose of having new records of voters or registered voters in various electorates. So total for that category was 9, but 3 are for before the election day and 6 after the election. Then we have recommendations related to register of voter database and system controls. There were 11 that are supposed to be handled before the election, pre-election day, and there were 6 related to medium term, totaling to 17 recommendations. For data and biometric analysis, we had 5 pre-election day recommendations, and we had 22 medium term recommendations, totaling to 27. Then for assessing inclusiveness in the register of voters, this is ensuring that different categories, either marginalized, women, youth, are actually represented fully. We had 0 for pre-election day, but we had 9 for medium term, giving us a total of 9. So, as indicated by the chairman and also myself in terms of the exceptions that were managed, most of this pre-election day had been resolved, and there are only few that are remaining. Like we said, the issues regarding transfers were basically handled to satisfaction of the commission. The issue of access control, we have already indicated that access rights have actually been withdrawn, and we are using least privilege principles to assign passwords based on one's tasks, meaning that you are not going to be given excessive access rights. There are also others which were related to policy. What does the policy say regarding, for example, management of access rights? For example, the password should have certain number of characters. The password also should be deactivated after a certain period of time. This is for the system, because for Active Directories, those policies have been implemented. But at system level, there are some mismatch between the policy and what has been implemented. So what we are doing is to ensure that the policy and what has been implemented basically agrees. On the issue of data and biometrics, I think the issue of comparison of our database with other agencies is something that we are going to pay attention to in future. But we have also indicated that to minimize keystroke errors, we are going to actually use, of course, with a discussion with the IPRS. It's easy when you just key in somebody's ID, when they present to you the ID, and you enter the ID number in the system, then it actually retrieves the information from IPRS, and that information is basically populated in the register of voter. That way you are going to eliminate completely the issue of keystroke errors. We also want to discuss with the civil registry. This is on their part, not our part. But also we want them to also use IPRS to populate their deceased voter. When somebody comes with a record that they have lost their deceased ones, all they need to do is just to enter the ID numbers in the IPRS and retrieve the records, and now have it populated in the CRS database. So it's easy, and therefore the issue of keystroke errors will not arise. We can be able to match our records favorably and ensure that our register of voter is actually complete and accurate all the time. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions on that? I think we shall share with you the briefing shortly after this. The communication team will share with you the briefing. Yes.
Yes, Chairman. My name is Paul Mwangi. I'm the Chief Legal Advisor of the Raila Odinga campaign. I have two questions. One, now that this audit has been done, when do we expect that you will have attended to every issue that deals with the integrity of this register, and that we can be sure that the register that you will now have is what will be final? And how can we and the public access that register that will have attended to all the issues that have been raised by KMPG? But I want to ask another question on something that you had said before, where you said that you're not going to have any physical registers at the polling station. I am wondering, do you have any other redundancy that you have designed in case of failure of technology of that day? I ask this knowing very well that this has happened before. Secondly, how do you defend your decision not to have physical registers in the light of the legal obligation of the Commission to have a complementary system for identification of voters? And how has the Commission attended to the requirement of the Elections Act that you must have a complementary system? And thirdly, I am concerned what would happen on voting day if there was a failure of technology, as has happened before, and you have voting going on in some parts of the country and voting not taking off in other parts of the country, and you do not have physical registers, so it is impossible to start any voting in any area, and the catastrophic effects that would have. Has the Commission thought of those possibilities and how catastrophic that would be, and what are the safeguards that you have put in place for that?
I think we can deal with that first, or you want to add more? Who wants to answer those questions? Yeah, or Marjan? I'll throw them around this time. I will not. But when will the register be complete? We have given you the figure today of 22,120,458. That is the register. That's the number of registered voters who will participate in the 2022 elections. The Commission promised to certify and gazette the register of voters. I think after this briefing, the Commission will meet and certify the register, and the register will be gazetted. So that will be done. I believe the Gazette notice then should be available tomorrow or day after. So there's no other register, only that one register. Marjan, let me ask you to say something about the physical register as a biometric and a digital register, and what happens on polling day if technology fails.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I've been asked to answer the question with regard to use of physical register. Not using physical register in the 2022 general election. And at the same time as addressing that question, we also look at what safeguards does the Commission has in case there's a technological failure. First of all, the reason why the Commission has decided to use a digital register as opposed to physical register is to prevent certain malpractices that were actually there before. And this basically is determining the number of registered voters as you are coming to vote. Using of the physical register actually involved deleting the name of those people who have voted. And the register, physical register, had all information regarding the voters in that particular polling station. And therefore, that practice of deleting to confirm who has actually voted, which is also being carried out by the KIMS kit, it was also being done physically by using the register of voter. So in strongholds, it is possible that the ones that are remaining, after a certain period of time, they start now entering the ID into the KIM system, and they give this and give their would-be voters ballot papers for them to go and actually cast. And this malpractice is what the Commission is trying to curb. Whereby, let's say when it reaches 4 in the evening, and then you look at who has voted, who has not voted, you can see the ID numbers of those who have not voted, and then you start now entering the same into the KIMS kit, and therefore will be allowing illegitimate people to vote. This is the, first of all, what is the reason? This is the reason why the Commission has taken this. Now, the other question is, how are you going to ensure business continuity just in case there is a failure in the technology? One is that the design of the KIMS kit is that it will use SD card, which is going to have information regarding the voters for that specific polling station. So the way we have organized is that we'll have backups KIMS kit in each and every ward. We'll have more than 4 backup kits, because right away we have about the 44,000 that we used during the 2017 election, plus 14,000 that we have actually, 14,100 we have bought. So this actually gives you a lot of KIMS kit that can be used for the purpose of, in case a kit fails, then you can now just be able to replace it with a working kit, and all you need to do is basically just to remove the SD card from the KIMS kit and insert it in the new KIMS kit. That way the presiding officer will not have visibility of who has not voted, because the KIMS kit will only show the numbers of who has voted, the count of the people who have voted, but they will not have visibility of who has voted, who has not voted, and what is the ID number, so that they can play games. So this is meant for good intention, not for any bad intention. It is basically to prevent malpractice that actually has been observed before. And so I've explained that there's going to be, and then also this KIMS kit is going to be connected to the network through the GSM, because at the end of the period, it is going to be used for the purpose of transmitting the results to the constituency as well as the National Tallying Center. So this KIMS kit, as it is being used, it is going to be programmed in such a way that at a certain specific time, it will be sending information to the National Tallying Center to to our servers behind, telling us the turnout. So we are able to also now very well compare favorably what is the turnout at a certain period of time, and then you can also be able to provide this information. So failure of one kit does not mean that there's going to be total failure. Of course, it is possible that some station may experience this, but we want to assure that we have got ample or adequate backups to take care of any kits that are going to fail. Thank you very much.
Let me just add. Let me add before you ask. The KIMS kit then is offline, and it is standalone except when it comes to transmission of results. And then the other aspect is that you walk in a polling station, your biometrics cannot be identified. What happens? So all you need is an ID. You have your ID number is taken, and the presiding officer then uses that ID number to log into the system, and your details will pop up. So there's no chance that you'll be turned away if you are a registered voter. The fact is the digital register is the same register as what would be on the hard copy register. So the fear that voters will be turned away, that's not true. Nobody will be turned away so long as they have an ID and they are registered to vote. Is that the one that was
the part of the question that is not answered is specifically Section 44A requires the Commission to have a complementary system for identification of voters.
Yes.
Which is that system? Because the digital system is one system, the law requires you to have another system. What is the other system that the City Commission has put in place in compliance with Section 44A of the Elections Act?
I think it's a matter of interpretation, Mr. Mwangi. What then constitutes complementary? And I think the explanation I've given, which the Commission has considered, is that if you cannot be identified biometrically, then you'll be identified alphanumerically. That, to us, answers your question. That you cannot be identified with your biometrics, then you should be able to be identified in the KIMS kits by alphanumerically, by production of your ID, and then your ID number should be able to get you access. So that's now a matter of interpretation, and you and me know, as lawyers, we can interpret things in many ways. Yeah, thank you.
My name is Brenda Wanga from Citizen TV. My question regards the issue of abnormal transfers. You said the audit indicated that there were counties and constituencies where these were noted. So my question therefore is, which counties and constituencies are this? How many votes or voters were affected? How many were revoked? And how will those voters whose registration polling stations were revoked will be able to know where they will be voting? Thank you.
Oh, now statistics, maybe CEO, you have them?
I only know a few,
Yeah, maybe you can attend that one. Or any commissioner who has, I know they have been in court throughout giving judgments. Marjan, maybe you can answer that.
Thank you, Chairman. There are about 10, I think 10 counties that had such challenges. I cannot recall all of them, but I know it touches one, Nairobi. There was also Wajir. There was also Mandera. There was also Garissa. And also there is this area of Nyeri. So those are actually areas that were actually affected. And actually, I think you might have witnessed that some of them were actually complaining, even in the media, especially that time when you gave them opportunity to go and verify themselves. Now, right away, even as we speak, inspection of the register of voter is still continuous. Means that you can be able to check through SMS platform as well as the web portal to check your status in terms of how many, which ones are remaining, where are they going to right away. I cannot be able to provide you that information offered. This I can be able to provide you later on, but not now. Thank you very much.
Just a follow-up to that. Were you able to identify who perhaps started these abnormal transfers, and if you did, what actions will be taken against them?
Yes, we have our suspects. About 3 officers. We are actually finalizing investigations, and they'll be apprehended to face the law, especially in those areas the CEO has mentioned. So that should be done in the course of the week. Yes.
So, Chairman, thank you very much for this briefing. My name is Saitabao Kanchori. I am the National Chief Agent for the Azimio Umoja candidate, the Honorable Raila Odinga. I think the first question that I have, which stems from the question that was asked by Paul Mwangi, is the Commission's decision, the Commission's decision to exclude the physical register. We know that the physical register serves a multiplicity of purposes. The first one is the one that Paul Mwangi alluded to. It is a complementary system. And the reason that the law requires a complementary system, and I know the Chairman has said it's a matter of interpretation, but I think we can agree that there is no interpretation that can say any registered voter should not be allowed to vote. So the first reason why the law requires a complementary system is just in case the other system fails, then there is a system, there is a backup system. And the explanation given by the Commission that there will be multiple gadgets or multiple SIM cards or SD cards, if one can fail, 10 can fail. That is how technology works. Let us also not forget that the digital system is subject to an extra security threat called sabotage. The physical register cannot be sabotaged, particularly on election day. And that is why the physical register is provided as an additional security measure. So the first reason is for it to be a backup. The second one is for it to be an additional security measure, just to confirm that the person who has appeared and whose biometrics have been taken is a registered voter. The last purpose of a physical register is to now delete, and I know that one has been addressed partly, but to avoid multiple voting. And that is why when in the past, in the previous elections, you appear, your name is struck out as soon as you pass the clerk who is supposed to do that. So how has the Commission ensured that in the absence of a physical register, all those requirements are met? Secondly, the KPMG because before us today what we have is the Commission's interpretation of that report. So could you kindly indicate whether you're going to share that with the public and in what form? And thirdly, and very quickly, this register which you are presenting today, the register that you have cleaned up, what the law calls the new register. It's also called the final register. When is it going to be published as required under Regulation 33? When is it going to be inspected, made available for verification and inspection? And in what format? Because if it is a digital register, how will Mama Mboga Boda Boda be able to inspect it if it is digital? Lastly, the figure you've given us of 22,120,458 registered voters. Could you just clarify what was the original number before the cleanup? Thank you very much.
The issue about fiscal register, I think, has been adequately explained by the CEO. I don't want to repeat what he has explained. I see unless you want me to say it all over again, but I believe it has been explained why out of the 2017 election and the post-election evaluation, it was found that most of the malpractices were as a result of the fiscal register. And we believe that using the digital register will cut down all those malpractices where the presiding officers have knowledge of who has not voted and the ID numbers, and they are able now to activate the details into the KIMS kit and allow malpractices to happen. It's not possible if we are using the digital register because the information as to who has not voted will not be available. And it's then very difficult for a presiding officer or any staff at the polling station to engage in malpractice. But this is a conversation we can have with the stakeholders separately outside this briefing, because I see it's coming mainly from our stakeholders. And I believe perhaps a date can be set for this conversation before we print the ballot papers, so that we can have a further engagement on this. Because it may then take that exchange which will take over all the other proceedings we are doing today. So if you can allow, then the Commission can look into the aspect of having a separate stakeholder meeting to discuss the issue of the fiscal register versus the digital register. Yes, Mr. Mwangi, you follow up on that?
In the meantime, maybe you can ask the legal department to advise, because this came up at the Court of Appeal in the challenge by NASA, and I think the interpretation was that you must have a physical register.
Yeah, that's why we can look at it, actually have a separate conversation, because you are our stakeholders, and we need to move on the same page. Yes. The KPMG audit report was submitted on the 18th of this month, and we as a commission then will share with the National Assembly and the Senate. That's what the law requires. We also having engagements like this one where we are rolling out the key highlights. You are saying that this is our version. It's not our version. This is an extract from the audit report. KPMG is an institution which is in this country. You can actually verify with them whether what we have said is true or not. I'm sure that information they'll share with you if you do ask them. But we shall share with Parliament, and the process of Parliament are normally open and transparent. But any information you seek, like what is being sought here, then the team management should be able to share with you that specific information, like on the issue of the counties that have done where transfers have been reversed. So when is it being published? I mentioned that after this, the Commission will certify and publish the register. In what format? I believe Mr. Marijan can comment on that. It will be, of course, a digital format, but you can comment on what format the application will take. We also want to say that inspection, the SMS platform is available throughout this period before elections. Between now and the elections, the SMS platform will be available. Kenyans who have not been able to check the details of the register should be able to do so once we publish and confirm their registration status. Also, 7 days to elections, each polling station will have a hard copy of the register, although it will not have all the details of the ID number, but the names will be there and will be pasted on each polling. Is it polling station or polling center? Polling station. Polling center. Station. Polling station. So the law requires that we give a copy of the hard copy of the register, which will be pasted on every polling station. So I believe those who may not be able to digitally get the information can also physically check 7 days throughout until the election day. What format will the publication take?
Thank you very much, Chairman. Allow me, for the purpose of comfort, because it would appear that we have a big issue with the register. I just wanted to add a little bit in terms of mechanisms that the Commission would basically put in place. What are we talking about here? We are talking about physical register on one hand and digital register on one hand. And both of the same are replica of one another. The question is which one can be abused and which one cannot be abused. And if you ask me, it is the physical one that can be abused. The digital one, like I said, is a replica of the physical one. The register that is appearing in the electronic KIMS kit, when a voter comes and has been identified, that record is archived. You cannot come again and use identified to come and vote again. But in digital, in physical register, it's even possible because it depends on the collusion, the people who are actually there. You can even strike again the same voter who has actually been who has already voted, and therefore this one gives you assurance that once you have already voted, your record is archived. You cannot come again. If you come again, the KIMS kit is actually going to alarm and make noise, and people are going to confirm what is this all about. And therefore, in terms of preventing multiple voting, I don't think that physical register will prevent multiple voting. But I think the digital register, which is actually in the KIMS kit, will actually prevent. I think then the issue is about, we are talking about complementary mechanisms, that the KIMS kit fail, and therefore we should now use the physical register. To the extent that we will not have additional KIMS kit, that argument can be legitimate. Because how many kits are going to fail during the election day? And we're only talking about identification here. So to make sure that the KIMS kit is going to be available, replacing a SIM card is just a split of seconds between one KIMS kit and another one. And therefore it is not going, and by the way, if there's going to be delay in terms of the period that we are actually doing that work, it has been stopped. We'll compensate for the same number of hours, if it's going to be hours, lost in the course of exchanging. Like I said, we have said that we have got 46,232, isn't it? We have got more than, so 44 plus 14,100, we've got more than 59 or 58,000 KIMS kit. If we are going to assign 46,000, it means that we are going to have a lot of KIMS kit for backup purposes. We have got 1,450 words. How many KIMS kit can actually be carried with the backups that we have per word? You and I know that we have got adequate backups. And therefore, according to me, this is the best bet. But I think the chairman has ruled out. I think it's important that stakeholders also, they need to have some level of comfort. So at some point, maybe there's going to be further discussion to show exactly why the Commission means this, and why we think it's basically the best option. Because according to me, this will be the best way to actually prevent somebody winning when they are not even supposed to win in the first place. You see, some of the transfers we are talking about, the ones that were reversed, if you take somebody from one place to the other, very far area, what would you expect during the election? These people who have been wrongly taken to a wrong place, they will not vote. But mark my words, if we are not discussing this during the election, those areas where those guys have been taken, and if we had physical register, we are going to see 99% or 100% turnout. And when you know very well that those people, let's say you are being moved from Nairobi to Wajir, and you know during the election you will not move from Nairobi to Wajir because you are going to do what there. Your interest is actually in Nairobi. Apart from Nairobi interest, maybe governor, women rep, and other MPs. But you will only, when you are taken to Wajir, suppose you are to go there, you will only vote for president. But you will see that in those specific areas, and particularly in strong areas, you will be shocked at the news, at the turnout. And therefore, according to the Commission, the belief is that this should actually reasonably, not 100%, reasonably manage that problem. Per constituencies and then per ward, and we only give the counts. So in terms of publishing and gazetting, we are going to give the breakdown of the register voter per county, per constituency, and also per ward. We'll give the number so that you can be able to know not more than these people should actually vote in this specific ward. But for the purpose of still verifying where are you during the election so that you can be able to go, I think the chairman has explained that you have the SMS platform, you also have the web portal to allow you to check where are you going to vote. Thank you very much.
We can take a few more questions. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as a Kenyan, I think I want to say thank you because you've opened up that window to continue engaging stakeholders and may not be part of the structured stakeholders on this printed register issue. And I do believe that you appreciate where the country is coming from. 2013. By 10 a.m. in the morning, the entire IT system had collapsed in terms of voter identification. We don't rule the possibility of that recurring, given that most of the gadgets which Marjan is talking about, some of them are more than now 5 years old, and therefore they can fail. So please open up that window so that you can constructively engage the stakeholders. Number two, both my chair and my CEO are talking of continuous inspection, but this register is going to be published latest tomorrow. Now, supposing through that inspection, I've realized that my ID tells me I'm a registered voter, but my details are conflicting. They are not what is in my ID, and the register has been published and certified. Where am I? Thank you.
Any other?
Oh, where are you? You didn't tell the media who you are.
Yes. Sorry, I'm Zekaura. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so Mr. Aura, the question of, we opened the verification process between the 4th of May to the 2nd of June, where we expected all Kenyans to turn up and be verified. A number of people went for verification, and their details then have been corrected in the register. Of course, the percentage which normally goes for verification is not very high. The purpose inspection, according to the law, is continuous. It's supposed to be continuous, and it will be continuous. Therefore, the purpose of inspection is to identify and know where you'll be voting. So once the register is gazetted, it cannot be changed. And the interest of all stakeholders, that register remains the register that we shall use in the 2022 elections. So I hope I've answered your question. Yeah, thank you. Do you have another?
Thank you very much for providing this opportunity for us to be able to engage with the Commission. I just have two questions, one following up on the issue of register.
And you are?
I'm Dr. Judith Olo.
Yes.
Yes.
Media or?
No, I'm just an interested Kenyan.
Or Kenyan?
Yes.
Like me?
Like you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So the issue of dead voters, those who have been registered twice, voters who have moved from one place to the other, we have just been told that the issues have not been cleared 100%. Some of them are 20, some of them 70, some of them 80, yet we have a final register. I'm just worried about their stand. And my second question is regarding the IEBC's capacity to make the decision by itself to remove the physical register while it is provided for in the law. I know that from the presentation that has been made here, the extra KIM kits are being considered as the alternative, but the law clearly says that there's need for a physical register. Does the Commission have the authority to make that decision by itself? Because by us being here and asking all these questions, it means we are not aware or were not consulted when this decision was being made. Thank you.
Yeah, so the two questions on the exceptions, I think the CEO explained the exceptions, saying, giving statistics on what exceptions have been finalized and which ones are under interrogations and require a lot of time to finalize. Dead voters, I think all of them were removed. The other exceptions require interrogation. And in the explanation by Mr. Marjan, I think he also mentioned that despite that you have to be biometrically verified, even if, say, cases, examples he gave of one having registered with ID and passport, appearing perhaps twice, biometric verification only take one person. And once you vote, you cannot come back and vote again. And so, just to allay fears, in 2017, I think the Supreme Court identified all these processes, and I think one of the processes that was given a tick was verification of voters. The Supreme Court did not have an issue with the verification of voters. In fact, verification of voters was successfully done in 2017, and that is what the Commission is building on. The issue about fiscal register, I don't want to go back there. I think I've said enough, and I said we can take this conversation to another level with the now stakeholders alone. And we don't have much time, so we shall fast track that meeting so that we can have a further conversation on it. But Section 44 is clear. The Commission is expected to put in place mechanisms of ensuring that the technology is then, aspects of technology are implemented, and that includes this issue of verification and the voter register. So I believe you can give that conversation a chance. I don't think we can finish in this session here, that conversation. Yes, Dr.
I think it was my turn.
Yes, sorry, go ahead.
My name is Giva Sumaina from K24. On June 9th, you did a simulation, or what you call a test. And by close of business in the evening, I think you had managed less than 70% of the returns. And we waited till we had to adjourn. What was the issue? What is the status? Are there solutions that, or are there problems you identified in that particular simulation? Then number two, what is the status of the 1,111 polling centers that lacked 3G network? Thank you.
Yes. You want to try that? Okay. The simulation, 9th of June, we got feedback from stakeholders, and we take feedback seriously. I just want to state that subsequent to that, we have engaged all the mobile network operators, and I want to also confirm that not all mobile network operators participated in that exercise. And so now we have engaged all of them, and by a month to elections, we shall now retest, do another simulation, and I believe that it will be what Kenyans expect. And so feedback was taken, and I believe the Commission is still running those tests up to now, but the final test will be a month to the elections. Yes, I believe there was the second part of his question on the polling centers, the 1,111 polling centers, which may not have 3G network. In the last week, as I have mentioned, we have met all the mobile network operators in the country, and they have assured us that they'll do their very best in these coming elections. And in areas where there'll be no network, and where you have talked of 1,000, we have talked of 1,111 polling centers. We have the satellite kits which we shall use, modems which we shall deploy to those areas. I also want to confirm that the Commission is mapping out specific now to polling stations, and shall gazette the polling stations that will have challenges with network connectivity. But as I have mentioned, we shall deploy satellite modems, which we used in 2017. They are still in good condition. At least 1,000, is it 300? 1,444 satellite modems are available for deployment, and they have been refurbished. So there should be no cause for alarm. Thank you. Yes, Dr.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much.
And then after that,
This is a very brief one, huh?
we shall know. Now we shall go to the media and finish.
My name is Ben Sihanya. I teach and practice constitutional and electoral law. Mr. Chairman, I think this is a very good debate, and you have indicated that there will be consultations. But as Kenyans and you consult at Regulation 69 of the Election General Regulations, which is to be read with the Court of Appeal decision in 2017, the NASA case on complementary technologies, is very clear that to briefly, 69(1)(d) require the voter to place his or her fingers, and then it says that the name cancel cross the name of the voter from the printed copy of the register. So the statutory, the regulatory language requiring printed, and that's also in E, which talks about identify the voter using the printed register. So the language is still in the regulations, and it was also litigated. I remember we litigated it all the way to the Court of Appeal. So that language is still there, and that was part of the basis of why these issues are arising. Thank you.
Yes, I believe, Dr. that's a comment, and it will be very useful in that forum which I'm talking about. I see Felix here. Felix, I'm sure you can quickly arrange for that forum. Yeah, thank you. Yes.
So my name is Duncan, and I work with KT News. Two quick questions. Number one, from the figure that now stands of 22.1 million, from what we had compiled after the end of the enhanced continuous voter registration, it appears like nothing much has changed in terms of the numbers. So does it mean, apart from the dead voters, nothing much the audit has sort of rectified in light of an almost alarming news conference the other day at 7 p.m. which painted a picture that there were very serious issues that the audit had actually identified. The second question, you've said that 3 officers are under investigations with regard to that attempt to tamper with the voter register. I am concerned in terms of security of the same officials or others, because we know a flashback in 2017 when Chris Msando identified such things or had issues, he ended up paying the ultimate price. So in terms of security, even to the 3 officers or some that might decide to avoid having a similar scenario like Chris Msando, what is the Commission doing?
Now, issue of the audit, I think the statement we have read out identifies a lot of audit issues. There were 7. And the issue here is They were identified in the preliminary report, and the Commission then has taken measures to put in place address those issues. And I believe that having been addressed, then there cease to be issues now. It's more like cleaning up the register for elections. So what you may have aired has now been addressed, and now you need to air what we have addressed. Now, the issue of security of our staff, yes, it's a matter of concern. As a Commission, we of course must take care of our staff, and what you mentioned about Chris Musando, as a Commission, we still feel aggrieved up to today. It was around this time that it happened, and we of course pray, and we have within our means. There's a security policy that management has for staff, and I believe that they are well secured. Of course, I can't give you details of the security arrangements. But it's an issue we have addressed, and the staff should be secured. Of course, we encourage them to finish work and go home, not to go to these social places where then they become prey to end of the night life until after elections. Then they can be able to socialize again. Yeah, thank you. Do you have any more, or we call it a day?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Luca with the right from the Spanish program. You earlier talked about 10 counties that have been flagged with irregular transfers.
Yes.
How many votes are we talking about in this case of irregular transfers?
Marijan, do you know?
I did mention that I cannot be able to remember those figures of it, and we are going to provide that information later, because we are talking about 10 counties and many constituencies being affected, so I can't recall the figures right away.
So the CEO is undertaking to share that information with the media on the numbers. Yes, thank you. I believe we can put this to another day. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the day.